Hello and welcome to Austria for After the Flag Edition 11, where Andrea Dovizioso has taken his first victory since Qatar. Thanks for joining us here in Spielberg. Before we start, apologies about the noise. There's a Moto3 and Moto2 test happening here tomorrow, and the RW Racing team are just getting the bikes warmed up and prepped for that. I'm Steve Day, Matt Birt, Simon Crafar join me here. What a race we've just witnessed here in Spielberg. Another classic from Stephen. Brilliant stuff. I don't really know where to start. We thought that maybe Marc Marquez was going to get away from this one, certainly given the pace that he had at the start of the weekend here, Friday, Saturday. But what a race we've just been dished up there. There was elbow bashing, paint swapping, bits flying off bikes, and then that last corner move from Dovi where, quite frankly, Andrea's done a mark on Marc.
Where do you start, Steve? Absolutely right. I feel absolutely drained and shattered after commentating on that one. What a race. I mean, 40 minutes of pure theatre, pure adrenaline-fueled action. There was not more than 0.4 of a second covering Dovi and Marc throughout the whole race. It all got lively right from the very first corner between the pair of them, and that was it. The scene was set, the stage was set for another classic. I mean, Dovizioso rode brilliantly. I think the key probably was the tyre choice, the rear tyre choice. Dovi said he went for that soft rear tyre. Marc went for the medium because he thought it would be better in the second half race. Didn't work like that. But you're right, Steve, that move at turn 10, I thought, I've got to put my hands up, I thought Marc had got it done and dusted. I thought there's no way Dovi's going to go for it because it's not a Dovi style move, but he lunged up the inside. He risked it all because he thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to run wide and finish second. Go for broke. What an unbelievable race. It was an absolute pleasure and honour to be here to witness it.
Simon, it has to be said that in the past when Dovi and Marc have had these encounters, there has been a distinct speed advantage for the Ducati and Dovi. He had to work in a different way today to win that race.
You're right. I caught up with Davide Tadozzi just before the show, and he said pretty much what you did. I said that...
And he calmed down, by the way, by this point. Or not?
He was howling when I tried to interview him, mate. He was yelling, guys, about the race, I'll get back to what you said. About the race, it's not very often, or you've watched a really good last lap and final, across the flag when you find yourself in the centre of the room screaming, don't you? And it was one of those for me. Absolutely brilliant. Davide Tadozzi, back to him, he said, the packages were pretty evenly matched here today, and Dovi beat the man who, beats everyone up on the last lap and does it fair and square on the same, really evenly matched equipment, down those straight. He did say, though, he's a little bit worried when we get to the tracks where they have some disadvantage. I gather he's talking about turning.
It looks as though Marc certainly went all in. I mean, he said he might hold back for second. He certainly wasn't settling for second in that race. A brilliant encounter where we kind of knew halfway through, Matt, in the commentary box, this is going all the way down to the wire. Even though Marc, obviously and clearly, a 58-point lead, we should be clear, he's in complete control of this in 2019 right now. But, we've interviewed Marc a lot. That hurt a little bit inside.
Definitely. He did go all in as we expected him to. He was desperate to win here in the Red Bull Ring. He's getting sick to the back teeth of saying this is a Ducati track. Ducati are going to reign supreme here again. He left it all on the line, didn't he? I mean, we saw him completely sideways, front and rear tyre sliding into that final corner. There was contact. Interesting, I thought, from Marc. He said about 10 laps to go, he felt like Andrea actually was sort of playing with him a little bit because Dovi knew that he had the better grip on the right-hand side. That little moment they had down the start-finish straight where Andrea basically cut the throttle because he knew he had that edge grip on the right. He knew that if he just shut the throttle, Marc couldn't go to the inside, and Dovi had him there. Dovizioso, we know he's the sort of master tactician. He got it absolutely bang on the money today. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Matt just said it. He is the master tactician and he's great at conserving those tyres and leaving that last little bit for the battle. But what I think was new, and he said it in Parc Ferme, was normally he thinks this time he just took a big risk and it works. Yep. It was almost a surprise for himself, and fantastic.
Let's just look a little bit further back because we'll come back to Dovi and Marc. We want to get through a few others. Fabio Quartararo takes third place, boys. I'm really surprised about that, and I don't mean because we know he's got the talent, but this weekend Yamaha weren't supposed to be there, and yet they were. It wasn't the factory boys, though. Front row and a podium. That's a huge result for Fabio and the Petronas team.
Shows once again how important qualifying is. He got himself on that front row. It meant that when there was that early scuffle and skirmish with Marquez and Dovizioso, he could pick up the pieces. He led for 5 laps. He learned so much in that race, certainly about rear tyre management, because he said he could have tried to have gone with Marquez and Dovi, but he would just burnt up the rear tyre and had nothing left for the end of the race. He rode a perfect race. He did not make one single mistake. You know, he was in his rhythm. He had to keep his focus and concentration. Not easy when you've got Rossi and Vinales breathing down your neck. And I've got to say, what about this for performance? Just check the top score, the event's best maximum speed. Through the speed trap, Fabio Quartararo had the slowest motorcycle.
Wow.
14 k's down on the Honda and Ducati. Yet this is what the fastest circuit on the calendar, average speed. So he had the slowest bike and was still on the podium. That kid's got skill.
It was evident, the speed as well. I mean, we saw it on TV. It was actually ridiculous, quite frankly. He certainly needed that extra 500 RPM.
Yeah, he was getting smoked down the straight, and like you said, Matt, to keep concentration, not make a mistake when you're trying to make that back on the brakes, well, like he had to do the whole race, was class. And finish ahead of the factory Yamaha.
Simon, I know that you've spoken to Mario Meregali and to Davide Brivio because we had Rossi, Vinales and Rins all behind Fabio. At one point, I think we all thought maybe Quartararo was going to lose that podium, so kudos to him for staying where he was. What did Meregali and Brivio have to say about the rider performances?
Meregali was quite straight and said that he came here thinking that they were in trouble, like always, you know, and that it was, if I remember right, it was 12 seconds, he quoted, faster race than last year. So they've made good improvement. They're making headway. He said, we're clearly down on power.
Yeah.
And he said, to fix that, we are really expecting something special at Misano. And part of that engine and package at Misano, part of it they are allowed to use after Misano. So it's not actually engine internals, and he's saying that they expect a little bit of top end, but a lot better drivability. And he said that was the big change here, was drivability, traction, not wrecking the rear tyre.
And that rear tyre choice for me as well was critical. Much, much cooler today. The riders were umming and ahhing about whether to go for the medium and the soft. Dovi, we know, went for the soft. Marquez said he should have gone for the soft in hindsight. Quartararo was the only Yamaha that did run the soft medium rear tyre. Rossi, Vinales and Morbidelli, they all went for the medium, so I think that also was critical, but take nothing away from Fabio. He was sensational yet again.
It was a disaster for Cal, unfortunately. He had nowhere to go as Polis Bargaro's bike decided to go pop. We're not really sure. Are you sure what's happened there?
Yeah, I caught up with Mike Leitner, the team manager of KTM, and he said that power to the ECU just shut down. They don't know why, but it was like turning the kill switch off.
The good news for KTM was Miguel Oliveira, though. I mean, what a ride from the rookie.
Unreal. He's really come on. I know KTM, Hervé told us that he'd given them, got new parts from KTM for Oliveira, and he said that KTM said they were a small change, but to Miguel, they felt really big and he said, this is super. Right.
Oh, well, the helicopter's going. It looks like Amy Dargan's off to Silverstone then. We need to, so Cal unfortunately went out of the race. We need to just quickly talk about Jack. It's been an interesting weekend, I think we can all agree, with Jack Miller, what's been going on off circuit. I understand, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I understand he was going to be making an announcement about his future within the next 20 minutes. We'll obviously bring you that. You can keep up to date on MotoGP.com. It wasn't to be for Jack Miller today.
A real emotional roller coaster all weekend, on and off the track for Jack Miller. Steve, I thought actually he was probably going to have pace that would have maybe had something for Fabio Quartararo. Forget Dovizioso and Marquez, but he made that crucial mistake into turn 9. But when you think just to be there, to try and block out everything that's been going on behind the scenes, he arrived here on the podium last weekend in Brno thinking, that's it, that's my contract, signed and sealed for next year. And then to find out that Ducati, the higher management, senior management of Ducati have been seriously contemplating bringing Jorge Lorenzo back into the fold, Jack Miller out. That would have been a real dagger to the heart for Jack. I think actually off the circuit this weekend he's handled himself impeccably. I would actually, I've got to be impartial, but I would love to have seen Jack be on the podium today. After everything he's had to deal with this weekend, I think it would have been the icing on the cake for him, but unfortunately not to be.
We all agree with that, and I heard Jack say, the debrief, that he ran onto a dirty bit. He knows what he did wrong, which makes it even worse, but he ran on a bit of dirty patch, a bit wide, and down he went. Guys, before we move on, I just mentioned about Rins. I spoke to Manu, like always, his crew chief, and he said that they struggled on the brakes here the whole weekend. And if you have a look, he was actually the fastest guy, repeatedly through Sector 3, where all the turns are. But basically, acceleration, engine power, and braking has let him down this weekend.
Well, I think Rins and Suzuki will be back for Silverstone. It's a circuit that's certainly been successful for them before. Quick shout out and a nod to Pecco Bagnaia as well. Really solid result to pick yourself up after what happened in Brno. Without further ado, let's see whether or not we got our predictions on the money here this weekend. Okay, here we are then in Austria. I don't think this is one of the more difficult ones to predict, actually, which probably means I'll be wrong, but I can't see past Marc Marquez. He looks in imperious form. I think he's going to take the win from Dovizioso. Third is a little bit more tough to call. I was going to go Maverick, but he let me down last week, so I'm really going to go with the heart here, and I really, really hope that after all the speculation, Jack Miller will be on the podium to take third.
Well, after all the Ducati domination at the Red Bull Ring, I think that is going to come to an end tomorrow. My race winner will be Marc Marquez. Still think Dovizioso is going to be right in there. Andrea Dovizioso to finish second. And I'm going for a man who I think has handled himself impeccably well so far this weekend. All the pressure, all the gossip, speculation and talk about Jack Miller. He's come out of it so well. I'm going for Jack Miller to put it all behind him and to take that final place on the podium. Marquez, Dovizioso, Miller for me on the podium in Austria.
I don't think the race on Sunday is going to be as clear-cut or obvious as qualifying. I think Dovi can give Marc a harder time than most people think. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Marc because I think he'll pull something out those last few laps. But I think hopefully it'll be good. Marc, Dovi, third. The two Yamahas of Quartararo and Viñales look really strong, but I would hate to race the Ducatis here if I was on a Yamaha Suzuki. It's all about horsepower. So I'm going to go Ducati in third as well. Petrucci and Miller were really similar times, but Jack's lighter on the brakes and hasn't got a job yet. I'm going with Jack for third.
Oh, well, there you go. We got it wrong, but at least we're all in the same boat. And, hey, after a race like that, I think we're pretty pleased that we got it wrong. So there we are. Look, before we end and we move on to Silverstone and we go home, me and Matt anyway, I want to just go back to Dovi Marc and talk a little bit about Fabio Quartararo, about what's going on contractually at the moment. World Championship is still alive, 58 points. Stranger things have happened in bike racing, but the comment from Marc in the press conference there, no one's going to remember this race in Valencia if we win the World Championship. He's right.
He is.
But it certainly shows just a little bit how much this maybe would have hurt.
Yeah.
Would we agree that if Marc had won here today, they'd have probably been calling the engravers up for the World Championship trophy?
100%. I think Marc made an excellent point as well. On racetracks where we know that the Ducati perhaps has the advantage or a small advantage, it's got the superior pace. Marc's always there. He lost today's race by 0.2 of a second. He fought right to the last corner. When Marc's on tracks that he likes, he just clears off into the distance. Nobody sees him. If you look at Ducati's 3 wins this year, where has Marc Marquez been? Right on Andrea Dovizioso's exhaust pipe in Qatar. He was right on Petrucci's rear tyre in Mugello, and the same again today. When Marc's strong, the Ducatis don't do that to him. They don't get anywhere near him. So for me, it's just delaying the inevitable, really.
Marc in control, Simon, but it's got to give a huge boost to Dovi and Ducati.
Well, look, I'm so happy Dovi won. I'm over the moon. Look, if Dovi had been winning the whole time, I'd be wanting Marc to win, It's just so good for the championship that it's a change. Let's just hope Ducati, I know they're working really hard. Every time I talk to Davide Tardozzi, they talk about it. They're working really hard to close, improve their weak points, and hopefully they do.
One last thing about Fabio Quartararo. Rather interestingly, I just caught up with a French journalist. Now, it sounds as if Petronas are coming up with the money to say to Yamaha, we want a 2020 full factory bike for young Fabio. I think he's certainly showing that he deserves it. 3 podiums now in 11 races. French journalist I was speaking to, I won't mention by name, said, what are Yamaha playing at? What is stalling them? Do they want him to go to Ducati? Apparently Fabio wants to sign on the dotted line. He wants to get this one over. What is stalling them?
Well, if Petronas have come up with the budget for that factory bike, which we are led to believe they had, Steve, well, the onus is on Yamaha now to deliver. They're putting the pressure, the ball in Yamaha's court. Why would you not give Fabio Quartararo a full factory bike next year, particularly if somebody's willing to cough up the dough for it? Give him a factory bike, let's see what he can do. Don't run the risk of him jumping ship and going somewhere else.
It's a dangerous game to play, isn't it?
Look, I got no idea why the delay is, but it's a no-brainer, isn't it? He is an absolute star. I'm sure Yamaha are going to do it. It'd be unbelievable if they don't. But about Yamaha, I just want to say here, the thing that we hadn't mentioned is they were really, really strong, both meaning braking, acceleration, okay, right through the middle they lost it, but no kidding, if they have a little bit more power, they'll fight for the win here. They would have today. So I think it's the only thing they're missing. If they can do that next year and have Fabio, and you know, they're going to get some podiums.
Well, look, it's a step in the right direction, and I think they'll certainly be competitive at Silverstone, which is where we're heading next. We've got a weekend off. Thank heavens, we've been on the road now for a couple of weeks. We hope that you've enjoyed it. What a race you have witnessed here this weekend in Austria. We're so pleased that this is booked on the calendar for another few years till 2025, announced today. That's it from us, guys. We're off to get a nice Weiss beer. We'll see you over in Silverstone, where the track has been resurfaced and hopefully the sun is shining.
Dovizioso pinches back the lead into the first corner. It's going to be time. They run again! Side by side. Block pass from Marquez. Here comes Andrea Dovizioso. He's going all in for the victory. Marquez standing firm. Turn 10. Dovi's up the inside. Block pass. He's got it. It's a block pass. It's a run to the line. He's got it. He's done it. It's 4 for Ducati and Dovi. Unbelievable. What a race. Andrea Dovizioso's done it again here in Austria.